Binance is going to reintroduce stock trading after ripping it out nearly 4 years ago because everything that's old is now new again. But more on that in a second. Welcome to Cryptocurrents, the weekly podcast of people working in crypto, blockchain, and finance, talking about all of those things so you could be smarter at what you do. No shilling, no FOMO, just people actually giving you what's important for you to know. Think of us like your own personal set of transformers. We're changing things up to meet the mission. No, we're not Decepticons, and you're not going to be stuck with a Volkswagen Beetle. I'm your host, Vince, and today I'm joined by our resident degen, Kale.
What's up?
And Katya from the Mew team.
Hey.
I feel like you both giggled at my intro. That makes me sad. It was like eye roll giggle. I thought that was a good one.
It took me a minute to figure out where it was going. When you said Transformers, I was like, are we talking like BattleBots Transformers?
We're talking about the animal version of Transformers. But speaking of animals,
we have a lot really listening.
True. You are really listening. We have a lot to talk about today, and we've kind of themed the show around stock and trading and IPOs. But let's actually start things off with pure crypto and talk about Ethereum. So Ethereum hit a daily record in transactions and activity on Ethereum, exceeded L2s. But that comes with some bad news bears, right? Because that is because of a bunch of address poisoning. Katya, talk to me about address poisoning.
Yeah, so address poisoning is an attack to steal crypto. And the way it works is the scammers generate. So it's possible on the blockchain to generate many addresses in a batch and a lot. So they generate these addresses algorithmically, and they have picked a target ahead of time. And that because your transaction history is transparent on the blockchain, like the Ethereum blockchain and public blockchain. So they pick a target and they see their transactions. And let's say this person sends a lot of transactions to this one other particular address, whether it be their banker, friend, relative, whatever they're doing. And the attacker generates all of these addresses until they hit an address that looks very similar to what this victim is sending to. So the first 5, 6 letters and numbers are going to be the same, and preferably the end as well, because in a lot of interfaces, when you look at the address, you don't see the entire thing. You see the first few and then the last few abbreviated.
Then that's all that people check too.
Yeah. I mean, even though they say check the entire address, of course, many people don't. So what happens is that once they generate an address that's really similar, from that address, they send to the victim a very small amount of like a stable coin, usually like less than $1. And so now this address is in their interface, in their address book, essentially, like it's in their wallet. And when the hope is that when they go to send crypto again to that address that they do interact with a lot, they will accidentally send to this one that's very similar, which sounds complex, but nowadays there are like toolkits that exist out there that even in person, like you don't need to know blockchain coding, like even in person, they can just plug and play and you put in the address that you're targeting or the thousands of addresses that you're targeting. And this toolkit will generate the addresses for you, etc. So it is a very active industry, scamming industry right now, this specific attack, address poisoning attack. And so the argument right now is that the spike in activity on Ethereum is mostly these address poisoning attacks. And the proof is that some very high percentage of these transactions are transactions for less than $1 for very low amount of stable coins, which is usually what a poisoning attack. Usually those are not useful transactions. You don't do that unless you're up to something. So, and the bigger conversation here is that the Fusaka upgrade that went through on Ethereum in December, it wasn't the goal of this upgrade to lower transaction costs in Ethereum, which Ethereum always says it's never our goal to lower transaction costs. We're doing other things, optimizing for other things, and transaction costs may go down on L1 as a result. And so they have, in fact. And now they're saying, some critics are saying that it's cheap enough to do a lot of scamming on Ethereum now. And this is the direct result, like a month later or a month and a half later, here we are. So that's the story.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts and feelings on this, right? There's definitely a bunch of people on both sides arguing about like, well, it's good that that, fees are down, but also we're seeing scams up. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's part of a much bigger and longer philosophical discussion about Ethereum's as an L1, its purpose and future. And when the layer 2 infrastructure started being built out few years ago, that was part of the conversation. And when people would say, well, why don't we just bring fees down on Ethereum? The answer, we don't want, they're purposefully higher on Ethereum to prevent spamming, to make it more expensive to spam and scam and all of that. So it's supposed to be the more expensive underlying layer because that is one of the things that makes it more secure. And so now people are like, so whatever happened to that? That some people who remember that conversation are saying, well, wasn't it supposed to always stay prohibitively expensive for those things? That's so why. And other people on the other side of the are saying, finally, Ethereum is cheap enough. So this is just a side effect; it'll go away. And I don't know. I think it's an important junction for Ethereum right now. Also in many other ways, all the conversation about whether it's becoming a tool for banks or it has to stay all of that. So this is very much part of that whole bigger conversation. And I mean, I think one of the answers is definitely always check your address from beginning to end.
Yeah.
The other answer is that there are tools out there that have existed for like a decade now, like the ENS domains, which exist that could fix this if people use them, but people don't use them because when you're just, hunting meme coins or pump dumps, you don't care about the tools that exist, but they do. Get yourself an ENS domain, get everyone you're interacting with an ENS domain, and this becomes not a problem. Of course, scammers will come up with other things.
Yeah.
The space evolves, but yeah, I'm looking forward to see how Ethereum responds to this because this is one of those junctures where the kind of the path of the blockchain may change.
Yeah. Kale, what are your thoughts on this?
Kate brings up a great point, and I definitely agree that like Ethereum feels like it's at a crossroads right now, and headlines like this, what pops up into my head is like, what is Ethereum for? Because if it's gonna be, if it's gonna be a replacement for banks and like purely a financial tool, it's like, do we want it to be super cheap or should it be a little expensive to like prevent these types of attacks? But like, on the other hand, is it not going to be like purely financial? Is it going to be like a general world computer type thing? And in that case, it's like, there's probably different use cases, for having cheap transactions. So yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like Ethereum is at a crossroads right now.
I think that's a good point.
We'll see like where it ends up in 10 plus years.
Yeah. This also just kind of makes me think of AI, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're seeing so many AI scams because AI is stone cold free right now.
They all came from Solana.
But
and people like at Davos, everybody was like, oh, AI agents, crypto is the answer for AI agents. So there will be much more spam coming our way from AI agents using blockchain for micropayments.
Yeah, maybe. But I also see these stupid agents in my I see these stupid AI agents in my my Telegram DMs being like, "Hey, what are your thoughts about this shitcoin?" And I'm like, "You're a terrible bot. I hate you." But
Instant block.
It's not a bot. Allegedly, is the stock market, and so we're gonna talk a bunch kind of about the stock market, and we'll just kind of go in order here. So BitGo, which is a wallet, just IPO'd, and it's the first crypto IPO of the year. Didn't do particularly great if we just kind of look at the numbers, but it is always interesting to see a crypto IPO. For me, this was interesting to observe because there wasn't a lot of fanfare. If we looked at the circles, the bullish of the world of last year, I saw a lot of press. There was a lot of zeitgeist around it. Is this just because wallets are boring and not sexy?
I thought it was actually mostly like a custodian.
No? Oh, is that what? Okay, so it's a custodial. Got it. Well,
that's
I
so
thought
funny.
like it also provides infrastructure services, including wallets and custodianship and where. So
I think I just latched onto the wallet because I'm like, yeah, as a wallet human, like this is boring. Wallets are dumb.
That's so funny. Like I also have no clue what BitGo does.
Mhm.
So I was gonna ask you guys, like, what, like, are they a
No,
wallet?
yeah,
Are they an
that's a fair
exchange?
point in and of itself that, like, it's the first IPO of the year, and all of us are like, "What does it actually do?"
Yeah.
For me, it's just random because it's like a lot of these companies, it's like they make sense. You know, when you hear Consensus is going to IPO, Kraken is going to IPO, it's like I've heard these brands a million billion times.
Mhm.
It's like I know what they do, but BitGo just seems like a random player out of nowhere. Like I don't hear people talking about BitGo. I don't know what BitGo does. Like, are they a wallet? Are they an exchange? But
Right,
like,
that's why I'm kind of, like,
obviously
leaning
they're
toward
doing well.
infrastructure, because usually you don't know
True,
about those
probably.
things,
Yeah,
like, when
yeah.
you hear those names, like, you're like, but still, yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I think there's kind of an optics problem, and also it's probably a case of maybe this is just the start of like crypto startups being like, "Ooh, good, exit liquidity. I want to retire," type thing.
Yeah, maybe.
But maybe that's not the case because, in the vein of IPOs, Ledger is allegedly looking at IPOing at a $4 billion valuation. We all know Ledger. We work with Ledger. I assume, all have Ledgers. No assumptions
Treasure
there.
girl.
I don't want anyone to get wrench attacked. But
Yeah, I don't own anything.
talk to me about that. A hardware wallet IPOing. Interesting. It's kind of like it's an infrastructure, but it's also a products play. And the 4 billion valuation to me seems pretty interesting. That I was kind of surprised. What are your
It's
guys'
quite
thoughts on that?
high.
It depends on who, yeah.
Who you ask, yeah,
Who
true.
you
I
ask,
mean,
yeah.
OpenAI worth a quadrillion dollars, and what do? They just make AI girlfriends.
No, they were saying that the argument is that, as you say, infrastructure, institutional custodianship, and all that. And that always reminds me, I'm sure I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but it always reminds me back in 2017, 2018, how people were saying all of these, like, decentralized exchanges are just like three guys with a ledger.
Yeah,
Which was probably true for some exchanges at that point. So not for nothing, Ledger is a tool that bigger player, because once you have serious custody, then you're probably using hardware wallets and multi signature schemes and all of that stuff. But yeah, but that's the argument, that the valuation is valid because there's an institutional need
yeah,
for that kind of secure storage.
Yeah, I'm very conflicted about this because I've mentioned in the past that like I want to see more types of crypto companies IPO,
hmm
because last year at least it was mostly exchanges
right.
and I think like maybe one infrastructure company. So it's cool to see a crypto company that's not just a pure exchange IPO. But on the other hand, it's like I can't let go of that there's like the 2023 leak where they like have some type of backdoor and they
hmm
can like freeze
Yeah, yeah.
funds and freeze wallets and do all the things that's like anti-censorship,
Like you
anti
with the
like
internet, the memory that's longer than the internet.
dude, it's like because I
No,
was
yeah.
I was a huge Ledger fanboy for
Mhm.
lack of words, because when I was first getting into crypto, I was like, oh yeah, hardware wallet, of course. Like, why wouldn't you want to use one of these? And I was like doing all the research and I landed on Ledger. I was like, I like the UX, I like the UI. And then come to find out, like they can just freeze my funds. Like, oh, I don't like you,
Hmm.
so you can't use Ledger anymore, and like all your hardware wallets are just frozen. It's like, yeah, totally antithetical. What's the word? Like, it
Yeah,
defeats the purpose
and at the
of
end, yeah,
what crypto was like originally made for. So I'm like conflicted about this. It is cool to see different types of companies, crypto companies IPO,
yeah,
but I'm very weary of
Wow.
Ledger these
You're
days.
like, your good opinion once lost is lost forever. Look at that.
apparently,
Dude.
once burned, twice shy, something like that. With the valuation, Katya, you mentioned it being high. I'm just kind of, and that I don't know if anyone has access to these numbers, but I wonder what the assets under management are for Ledger. Like how much in US dollars people keep in ledgers. It's got to be an astronomical number. So when I'm like, "Oh yeah,
Well,
4 billion?"
here's the
Like,
thing though. Do you think they have access to that information?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Yeah, good question. Probably not, because there's a lot of people
Because
that
they're not supposed to. They're
yeah,
not
yeah.
supposed, like, because the ledger, the phrase generate, it's like supposed to be a thing in itself, unconnected to anything. So
Mhm.
the key generation, and therefore the address generation. So
I would
Good
think
point.
ideally,
I would think they could probably maybe extrapolate based off of any like swap data or like I have no idea. Like if
so
you use
if
a
somebody uses maybe their native software,
yeah, maybe.
Ledger Live, which is the default. Like you can use your hardware wallet with other
Yeah.
platforms like Mew and many others. But the native platform, Ledger Live, maybe they have access to that. So if you use that, I don't know. Actually, I don't want to spread false
Yeah, I
information.
don't
I
know.
don't
I
know.
don't know. I mean, the number has to be so high, right? Like the
Yeah.
amount of money in those wallets, like if you could figure out
And
how to
because
monetize that,
honestly,
interesting.
because if you think about it, this is actually an interesting point. Like the choice of software wallets, mobile, desktop, and browser is so large now. Like
Yeah.
there's so many. Hardware wallets,
Two. You got
like
two.
it's Ledger and Trezor. There have been others because, and I'm probably one of the few people who knows about them because Mu historically has supported as many hardware wallets as we could
Hmm.
for people. So, they have come, there's Cool Wallet and Bitbox and, things like that most people have never heard of. So it's really a very niche kind of small amount. But the main ones are Ledger and Trezor, and that's about it. And it's interesting because I guess creating a hardware wallet is a much bigger lift than a software wallet because you need actual production,
Yeah.
which is a whole different deal.
Child
That's
labor
an
is hard to
like
find.
Yeah, and like Gail was saying, like if something happens with one, like with Ledger, and you decided that that's it, you're not going to trust them anymore, like you're going to run down to zero pretty quick with hardware wallets at this point. So,
Yeah. No, I think this will be a fun one to watch because I think you're right. Like the bits and pieces, the production element is interesting, the software is interesting, and the brand I think is interesting. But then again, like what do the normal people of the world even think of this? Probably nothing. Going back to my question of like how much, what is their assets under management? How does that also compare to like Coinbase's assets under management? I just have questions.
It's a good question. Instinctively, if you had like only 1 second to answer, who do you think manages more, Coinbase or Ledger?
Probably Ledger.
That's what I'm thinking too, right? Because like, how many people stored like 1,000 Bitcoin in their ledgers like 10 years ago?
That's kind of
Just
my
never
thought as
touched it, right?
well. Like I think you've got the early adopters that are still using it that are just absolute monolithic whales.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Coinbase is like, yeah, here, we'll give you $10 if you trade
Yeah,
$100
yeah.
coin, on the Super Bowl ad.
And then they end up losing their whole portfolio in Coinbase.
Yeah. But speaking of Bitcoin, you bring up our next story, which is the Bitcoin white paper now displayed on the wall of the New York Stock Exchange. This is silly. This is optics. This
What?
is like, oh shit. Okay, Kale's gonna disagree with me, but like, who cares? Who cares? Why do we even need the New York Stock Exchange building anymore? Like, they don't need walls. Like, we don't need people going
no,
in
come on.
yelling. Like, come on.
Who raised you? Like uncultured.
Straight up, dude. Because, okay, here's what we're going to do with the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
We're shutting it down and we're turning it into a museum.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
I like
obviously,
that.
yeah, like we don't need it for like live trading anymore, but
Yeah, but we're not
like it
getting rid
is,
of the building.
yeah, like it's a historical building, it has a lot of culture,
Yeah, I didn't mean like
and
literally
history.
get rid of it. I'm just saying let all these
I'm
heads
not
bros
sure.
just sit at home in their
No,
pajamas. Like they don't need to put on the suit and tie and the fake Rolex and go in and be like, oh, there's the Bitcoin white paper, which they haven't even read and probably don't even care about.
Maybe they like going there.
Maybe.
Like,
that's
let
what
me
I'm
put
saying,
this to
dude.
you.
Like,
You're a connoisseur of foods and wines, and you
Yes,
can order everything to your house. Do you still like going to a restaurant?
I
Yes,
do.
you do.
Yes, this
There
is
you go.
true. This is true.
yeah, no, that's a great analogy.
Okay,
'Cause,
so you
yeah,
think
it's
this is
like,
a
what
good
if you just
thing?
what if you're just a finance nerd and then you're like, oh yeah, I want
And
to
you
go
want to
check
see
out the
those
stock. Yeah,
screens, and
it's like a
you
part
want to
of
see this.
history.
Yeah, the pit or whatever it is. I've only seen it in movies, obviously, but
it's not even like the real white paper. Like, we could have had a cool statue. Like, I love the Satoshi
so
statue.
here's the thing that I think I figured out, and
Okay.
I couldn't find confirmation for this. Like I was unsuccessful in googling whatever. But so I noticed that the Bitcoin white paper announcement came out on the day of the BitGo IPO.
Mhm.
And if you look at the picture, the little tile that describes whatever, it says it was contributed by BitGo.
The
I
white
totally
paper?
didn't clock that.
Yeah, like the display.
Mm.
So BitGo, whatever,
So
it
this
says
was
it's
just part of
honored.
BitGo's marketing.
So the thing is, the Satoshi statue was contributed by 21 Capital, which
Mhm.
was, I think, one of the first or the first mainly crypto company to IPO at a New York Stock Exchange.
Okay.
So now I'm thinking maybe when you IPO, you can contribute something to like the little museum they got going on there or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, because they have that little coin too. I think it said by Circle.
Circle, right? It's a
Ah.
hardware wallet shaped as a coin.
Yeah, and it's
So we're
correlated too. It's pretty
learning
dope.
here. We're learning and you're learning,
Again,
listener.
I could not find confirmation for this, but and I couldn't even find anything like because they say New York Stock Exchange wall, like which I just assume like is a display wall, but I couldn't find anything. But that's my theory now that when a company IPOs, it has the option to contribute something to that whatever museum they have. And so BitGo contributed this copy of the white paper, and 21 Capital before them did the Satoshi
I
statue.
wonder if they give them the option or if it's an obligation. And if it is an option, that's very telling of like who's
I'm sure
the
it's
real
an
crypto
option. I don't think
boys.
it's an obligation. Like you have to bring
Yeah, yeah.
something to the table.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You
I
have to
kind of
bring
like
the king
that.
a gift.
Yeah. Coming to a
Bring your
party, you
own.
have to bring ice.
Yeah, but so I thought that was interesting, and that was their choice, and I'm sure it would have been other people's choice, but they beat them to it. So
What a boring
yeah,
choice.
I mean, no, but I think it's fun. I think it's fun because these IPOs, like as you said, Vince, like or you, Kale, mentioned like that you wanted more variety. Like they can get, I mean, I guess it's still an opportunity to trade stuff, but when you see it in the movies with the bell and whatever, it feels like it should be more of a fun vibe,
Just get your
So I think
shoulders in
this.
there. Just if you're listening to this, you should also watch this.
Maybe I got primed by the guys putting on fancy suits and
Wow. There you go.
going to the
Got
stock
groomed.
exchange.
Dude, I think this is really cool in general because like I know that there's still a huge faction of people who think that crypto is like fake or not going to last for give it a few years. And so like in my opinion, any type of validation like coming from this high up like in the literal New York Stock Exchange, I love to see it, because it's just like more proof and validation that like crypto really isn't going anywhere. No matter how all the metalheads feel like gold heads, not metal like the genre of music. But you know what crossed my head when I saw this was, it sounds crazy, but like, are we still early? Like, as far as global adoption goes, because it's like, this feels like things that happen in the beginning of an industry. It's like, oh, we're going to start putting it in the New York Stock Exchange. Like, oh, this is a commemorative piece of look at how cool crypto is. And then like 10 years from now, people are like going to be putting white papers in everything. Is that what's going to happen? Like,
Hopefully not.
Probably
The
not.
white paper's so boring. It's like
I don't think we need any more white papers.
It's like Katya putting her college essay in her mom's fridge when she was a child, being like, yeah. Look at me.
Yeah, no, maybe not exactly the white papers, but like this does feel like a cultural shift, you know? And I can't help but think like maybe we are still kind of early.
I mean, I like that optimism. I feel like I haven't seen that optimism from you in a while. For like, ooh, we're early. This is. You're always like doom and gloom. Yeah,
the trenches killed me.
Just bleeding out like World War II movie. But so let's round this out where we started with Binance bringing back stocks. Katya, talk to me about this.
So yes, it's not confirmed. They're just saying that they're considering it. They had this in 2020. They started with this in 2021, and then shut it down because they were flagged by the UK and Germany, um, and they had problems, so they shut it down. But now, now they're considering it again. They do already have other tokenized real world assets. I'm not sure what exactly, but not equities. But the interesting part about this to me is that, at least from based on what CZ said at Davos, he is in negotiations with multiple countries about tokenizing their stock. So it's what we've been talking about a lot already, but it's all about US stocks. Well, because we are in the US and because that's the focus. I think for most tokenization efforts right now is to tokenize US stocks so that it's accessible to non-US persons who can't get access to brokerages. But Binance is talking about tokenizing, everything, whatever, to exchanges in other countries and tokenizing all that stuff, which opens it up much wider potentially.
Mhm.
But other than that, it's just more of the everything app, everything exchange, all these places that are doing both crypto and stocks now. And when I was reading about that, I wanted to ask you, Vince, because
Yes.
you have been in traditional markets and trading for longer than me at 0 days.
With a couple hours.
Has there been traditionally, like before the Robin Hoods and all that
Mhm.
stuff, did people have a really wide choice of brokerages, like, and your like interfaces, for lack of a better word,
Mhm.
like the experience, has it always been like that except with TradFi, or are we with these everything apps, is it very different in terms of like the choice people, because sometimes we say, oh, whatever, it's more of the same, but maybe this kind of choice was never available to retail consumers. What do you say?
Yeah, so over time, like, everything has gotten broader and more open. Back in the day when I was placing, trades on E-Trade that cost me $10 for a $100 trade, so I was starting 10% in the hole.
Crazy.
There wasn't, they were very selective about what they covered, and that was E-Trade, which was like the big hot fintech of its time. But no, people didn't have a lot of choices. You had Schwab, you had JP Morgan, you had
Hmm.
Vanguard and Fidelity. That was kind of it. And I probably
And the
missed a
experience was
couple.
probably quite simple, like in terms of like the technical
Yeah, it
interface
was
of it.
relatively similar, but then like different assets weren't always offered on each platform. And to this
Hmm.
day, certain ones like if I say over the counter OTC stocks, which is like uh pink paper stocks, which are penny stocks. Uh,
Hmm.
the stocks you see them selling in Wolf of Wall Street, where he's like, something great just came across my
Right, right,
desk,
right, right. Yeah.
John. Only Fidelity kind of really supports those kind of stocks these days. But yeah, so it is evolving and it is opening up. And I think you're right. Like opening up for more global markets hasn't really been done before. And certainly as an American, like our exposure to other markets is very limited.
Hmm.
And by that, I mean, most people are like, oh, I want exposure to the rest of the world economy, excluding the US. And it's just VX. Can't remember the ticker, but it's Vanguard's like world market excluding the US. It's
Mm-hmm.
like VX USA or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so I agree. This is broadening, this is widening, and this could be something that's different and not just more of the same.
The degen in me heard a couple things. I think
Yeah.
it's funny. It's hilarious that Fidelity is like the last man standing with the penny stocks.
Uh-huh.
They're like representing the degens as far as the stock exchange goes. And then secondly, Katya knocked something loose in my head that I never thought of before that I'm like super curious of now, in that there are other stock exchanges like that exist. That's not just the New York Stock Exchange, you know? So like
Yeah.
there's stocks.
You
I
realize
mean,
there's also multiple ones within the United States, right?
well, yeah, but it's like I don't know the technicalities of that. All I know is like there are stocks that I'm allowed to buy, and then there's like the Chinese stocks, and then there's Russian stocks, and like all these exchanges across the globe. Yeah, bringing stocks on chain, like can I buy like the next up and coming 1000x Chinese stock now that I'm not allowed to buy currently. Like
Well, see,
that's
this is
a use
the
case.
thing. This like moment you just had, like aha moment that you just had, is what the U.S. stock tokenization, the platforms are pursuing
Yeah.
in the people, you know,
Who
in
can't
the other
get it
people,
now? Yeah,
the
yeah.
most people in the world who are not U.S. people.
Yeah.
True.
And
Yeah,
to,
no,
to
I would.
that point, like to both your points, but specifically Katya's, like, yeah, tokenizing US stocks is interesting because people in Latin America know what Coca-Cola is. They just can't invest in it.
Mm.
I can't name a publicly traded company
Yeah, yeah.
in another country that isn't publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. So
Yeah, like
Yeah,
you can
no,
have
good
an
point.
abstract interest to diversify your portfolio to those
yeah,
exchanges, but
here I
you
am looking at the Brazilian stock market being like, well, I don't speak this language and I don't understand what this company does. I don't like, yeah. So that is the challenge to find your 1000x.
On the Brazilian McDonald's.
Maybe, man, like brush up on your Mandarin if you want to like start learning, I think of your next 1000x token or
I mean,
stock.
Chinese stocks on chain though. That's like a whole new world. I need to get into all the stock exchanges.
For sure. But no, I agree. I think this could be really cool. I think talk about a storied history of Binance, like CZ going to prison, like the problems they get into, the problems they get out of, like what a storied history of a company. And I think it's always fascinating and interesting to see what they do and what they say because they feel so calculated in everything they do, which is kind of unlike, Coinbase that's like, let's shave our heads.
We're SocialFi now.
We're socializing. Oh, exactly. I don't know. But that was a lot of stock market talk. We promise next week might not have as much stock market talk, but I reserve the right to talk about it because I do think it's important as crypto moves closer and closer to TradFi to really kind of hit on these, important subjects of IPOs, tokenization, and all that jazz. But thank you, dear listener, for sticking with us. We appreciate you being here. We hope you feel smarter because you should be. You are. Because Katya was here and she makes everyone smarter by her presence. Make sure you leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Tweet at us on Twitter. We like it when people say hi. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.